Hey guys, today we're gonna be creating a ping pong game in OBS. So I'm actually playing a ping pong game in OBS right now, and the way that I've achieved this is by using the 4S engine, which is a programming language that was written in Lua script, and this runs in OBS because OBS actually supports Lua script. And yeah, the engine basically allows you to create mini games if you want to, or also like animations as well. But mostly the engine is created for creating animations with the sources. But you can also create, like you say here, a mini game that I'm actually playing right now, like this one. This is called a ping pong game, and yeah, this is written in the 4S engine, and that is what we're gonna be creating together. So other than that, just sit back and watch me code this game to live with you guys. Alright, here we go. I'm gonna be using the VS Code editor to like do my coding. The first thing we're gonna be creating is gonna be the variables that we're gonna be using for, keeping track of the speed, keeping track of the score as well. Now we're gonna go ahead and do some collision here, and also register the hotkeys as well. So the hotkeys will be like where the user presses the keys to move the paddle up and down. And yeah, this is actually gonna be like a player versus AI, like versus a bot. It's not gonna be player versus player because that's just boring basically. So we're just gonna make it a bot that follows the ball when so that way they can hit the ball back instead of just staying in one position. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. But first, I'm actually just creating like collision detection for like the ball and the paddles. Oh yeah, also I didn't mention that the way this runs is it's using OBS like I said, but it also is using the sources that are currently visible in the current scene. So that is going to be the ball, the paddle 1, the paddle 2, and also the other one called score, which is going to keep track of the score. So that's going to be a source label, a text label that we could like modify the text and all that stuff. So yeah, make sure you have those when you're also coding this as well, because you're actually gonna need them to be able to like move them around and work with them. I forgot to tell you guys about that. Call this player move. Okay, now we're gonna need one more. Guys, to start. This would be the main. Alright, so now that we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead and create the player movement. This is where we're gonna create like the movement for player move up and player move down. Fuck, this is hard. Let's see what we need to do here. We're gonna do wait, I guess. 16 milliseconds. And so it's gonna be moving the player up, so that would be move y minus, let's do 12. We're just gonna be moving by 12 pixels. Let's go 16 frames per second, linear. And then now we need to check full collision. So if the ball is like hitting, I mean if the player's paddle is hitting like the top of the screen, then we need to, what the fuck, why is it doing that? Then we need to move it to, so that way it doesn't get off the screen. So we're just gonna set the position back to 0 basically. So that would be reset. Player. Pedal up, and then we're gonna do if the moving is equal 1, then we're gonna go ahead and call the move. And there we go. So that one is set. I'm just gonna copy and paste the code to make things fast. So this one is gonna be move down instead of move up, and then we could change this one as well to move down. And of course this one is gonna be plus plus because now we're moving down. What else am I missing? Oh yeah, this one. I'm gonna change that to that, and now we just gotta create those labels for detecting, you know. I'm just going to copy this. I don't wanna, that's too long. It's a very long name. So all we have to do here is just set the source we're working with, which is gonna be paddle 1. That's gonna be the player's paddle. Then we're gonna reset the position, and we're done with that one. Let's go ahead and copy and paste the code again. This is gonna be for the down movement, for resetting the down movement, and then this one is gonna be screen the height minus height, which is the height of the pedal. Of course, over here as well, we need to change that to the same code, screen the height minus height. So that is if the pedal is all the way down on the screen, then we're gonna tell it to just reset the position to screen the height minus height, which is the height of the current pedal, which is the current screen minus the current pedal's height. So that would make it so it doesn't go off the screen, it just stays solid, like it's actually hitting the screen, you know, like it's actually colliding with the screen itself. Other than that, I think we need one more thing here. I actually forgot to add this one. This is gonna be reset player move. Now we're just gonna say player move end. All this does is just going to reset the moving variable to 0, because this is how we keep track of if the player is actually pressing the hat key. And we're done. So of course we actually forgot to add that, so over here is where we have to add this player move end key, so that way when the player is pressing the down move and then when they let go, it will go ahead and reset the moving variable, which is going to cause this loop here to also stop moving, so the player is not moving anymore. That's what we're doing here. This is a jump statement that we're doing. We say jump back to this, which is actually a loop. So whenever it's jumping between the current label over and over again, that is called a loop. That's why I'm using this wave command here to tell it so it doesn't like cause OBS to freeze basically. Because if you don't do this, if you don't use a wait command and you're using the jump command to like loop, to create a loop, then that could cause OBS to like freeze or like crash as well, because it's basically, this is a loop that could never stop executing. So that's the reason why I'm using the wait loop here. I mean the wait command to tell it, so you know, to tell the engine to I guess like slow the execution a bit, so that way the OBS can also do what it needs to do, you know. So make sure you're using the wait command whenever you're working with like jumps, you know, when you're creating a loop inside of a jump. This is what this is. This is a loop right here, basically. So that's how we also keep track of when the player is moving. So if the player is pressing the hotkey, then that's where we're going to be moving the source. Oh, actually I forgot. We need to also set the current source that we're moving, which is going to be paddle 1. That's going to be the player's source that we're moving, which is the paddle 1. Paddle 1 is the first player. Paddle 2 is the second player, which is going to be the AI. Same thing with the I think the other one up here as well. I forgot to put it. This is going to be source and then paddle 1. So always, whenever you're using the move command, the way it works is that it's going to check if it's currently assigned to a source, and if it is, it'll go ahead and move it. And sometimes, if you didn't set the current source you're trying to move, this command is sometimes can work like a global command, meaning if you have like other code up here that, let's say we do something like source and then I put ball here, and then I forget to add to like update the source over here, what's gonna happen is the move command will actually move the ball instead of moving the player. So that's why you always need to make sure you're changing the source that you're trying to modify, basically. And in this case, I'm trying to modify paddle 1. That's why I'm trying to move, and that's why I have it here. Okay, moving on to the next step. Oh yeah, also this here, I have a skip here and I have end. This is just a block this is a block as a way to tell the engine that you don't want the code to execute instantly. So by putting this skip block, it's basically going to ignore the code inside, but it's going to record the labels that you're creating. So that means I can refer back to them. That's why I'm able to refer back to them up here, because the way skip block works is that it just skips the code that you're executing, but it records the labels that you're creating. So labels are like a marker in a position, and that's why it's able to do that, because it doesn't like do anything. It's just like a marker in the current code that you're writing. And that's why by using the jump command, it's able to, you know, jump to that execution later on, because it's just a marker. It's just like a position mark in a programming language. And yeah, it basically works like a loop sometimes, and that's what we're doing here. Just creating a loop function that creating a label and then jumping back to that label over and over again, depending on the condition here that we're checking. Okay, I don't want to make this video long. I don't know why I'm explaining a lot of things. I shouldn't be doing that, because this is just going to be way too long. Anyway, moving on to the next step. So the next step is to create the ball collision. So that's going to be when the ball hits the paddles, you know, when it hits the left paddle or the right paddle, and what it should be doing. And that's why we have bounce right and bounce left. So that's what we're going to be implementing right now. So whenever the ball touches the paddles, we want to do something, basically. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create ball collision. I'm also going to tell the program to skip this section, because we don't want this section to be executed right now. So I'll say bounce, let's go bounce left first. And the way this is going to be working, bounce left is when the ball hits the right paddle, which is going to be paddle 2. So we're going to say paddle 2, source paddle 2, and now we need to do some calculation here. Depending on where the ball hit the paddle, then we want to make that ball go in that direction, basically. So that's going to be pose Y. So we're going to take the current position of the paddle, like how the height of the position Y of it, basically. And then we need the current height as well. So that's going to be height. And of course, now we need the ball itself. So we need to get the ball's Y position. Just call it BY for ball position. Y position. Okay, and now this is where we're going to do the math. So we're going to create another variable here. We'll call this normalized. So let's see, how do we do this? Normalize is going to be the current ball's position minus the y's position, the paddle's y position, plus the height divided by 2, the current paddle's height divided by 2, and then we need to divide that by the current height of the ball of the paddle by 2 again. So that will make it so the ball basically travels in whatever direction it hit the paddle from, basically. And then over here we're going to, we need to modify the velocity, the y velocity with that value. So that's going to be val y, which is the variable that I have up in the global scope. So normalized times 15. That's like the I think that's like the speed or the offset of it, right? I think that's like the speed, probably. Yeah. And then what we need to do next is also modify the x velocity. So because we want the ball to move to the left, that's why it's called bounce left, we are going to use minus here, and then we're going to do math.abs for the current velocity of x times 1.05. That's also the speed as well. That's like multiplying it by this value. So it's going to be, oh wait, I'm missing something. I forgot to add a pipe here. So always add a pipe whenever you're modifying values or passing data to the commands. Okay, and yeah, that's basically that. That's done. Of course, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this and then paste it again, because it's gonna be the same thing for the other one, which is bounce right. So this is when the ball hits the paddle 1 instead of paddle 2. Now the ball has hit paddle 1, which is the player's paddle, which is the player 1. And it's the same math. It's just this part here, instead of being negative, it's gonna be positive. So that way it goes on the right side instead of the left side. Yeah, it's just the same code. Anyway, now that we're done with that, we need to create 2 more labels. That's gonna be ball top. So this is when the ball hits the top screen. So if it hits the top screen, what we need to do, we need to make it bounce down so it doesn't go off the screen. So we can do that by, of course, modifying the velocity of y by just setting it to the default value, I mean the absolute value instead of the negative. So here we're going to do this. Val x, no, not val y. This is very simple. It's not even that much. And then of course we need ball bottom. So this is when the ball hits the ground, basically, or hits the floor. So this is going to be val y again, but in this case, instead of being positive, it's going to be negative val y, and we're done. Look at that. Simple, right? Very easy. Oh fuck, I forgot something. Instead of returning this time, this is when we're in, like, when we're actually playing the game itself. So this ball top and ball bottom will actually be executed when the ball is actually moving. So that means we're just going to tell the engine to jump back to ball move, which is going to be another label that we're going to be creating later on. So yeah, that's basically all except for that. All right, we're done with the section. So this is the collision section right here. Very cool. Moving on to the next part. This is where we're gonna be creating like the score update. So that's gonna be something like, let's create some score update. So of course we do need a skip block here as well. You don't need this many skip blocks. You could actually put everything inside of one skip block, but I'm doing this for like more, to make it more readable basically for myself. Okay, so this is where we're going to update the player score. So we're going to do player 1 score. So we're going to do global variable player 1 score ++1. So that means the player 1 has scored a goal basically. And if that's the case, what we need to do is modify the label, the source label. So we're going to do that by doing this, and then change the text of it. It's going to be player 1 score dash player 2 score. So this is just updating the text. And then of course this function will also be executed inside of the call this reset everything. That's what I'm going to call it, reset everything. Yeah, I was about to say this function is I mean, this label will actually be called inside of the ball movement. So when the ball is moving, let's say the player 2 hits the ball and he goes to player 1, but he actually scores a goal, then that means the ball is still moving. So that's when this label will be called. When the player actually scores, it will call this label, which means the game is still on. So we're gonna tell it to jump back to ball move, which is gonna start over again. But this is how we actually start everything, by calling this this other label that I'm going to be creating later on as well. It's called reset everything, so we're going to create that later. So first it calls that one, and then it calls the jump. It calls the jump command to make the ball move again. Okay, that's that. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this for the other player, which is going to be player 2 instead of player 1. Oh no, it's the same thing. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it's just modifying which player scored the goal basically. That's where everything changes, but the rest of it is the same thing. Yeah, that's the score update section. Now we need to create the movement for the player 2. So the player 2, like I said, is going to be a bot that just moves automatically just by following the ball itself. So we're just going to go ahead and do that here. I'm going to call this player 2 movements. So yeah, like I said, this is going to be automatically following the ball. So it's not going to be like the player 2 is playing this, but it's going to be, you know, just a bot playing with you basically by following the ball, where the ball goes and all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and do that by doing this is going to be like in the main here. So we're going to say player 2. That's what I'm going to call it. And then what player 2 does here in this case, it's going to be paddle 2. That's the player 2. And we need like to do some calculation. So this is where we're going to check if the ball is actually moving up or moving down, and then we're going to tell what the player should do basically. So we need the current position of the paddle, where the paddle is currently at, and then we need the current position of the ball. So we're going to switch back to ball here, and then we're going to get the ball's position, the ball's Y position. Okay, and then now just by doing that, we can go ahead and do the check statement. So we're going to be using a if condition here to check where the ball is currently at. So we're going to say if the ball is less than, oh my god, I hate this fucking thing that I added. It just automatically just adds these two symbols when I just want one of them. So I'm going to say if the ball is less than, if the current position Y of the current ball position, if the current Y of, wait, how do you say it? If the current ball, wait, if the current Y position of the ball, that's too much. If the current ball Y position is less than the current position of the paddle plus 80, I think. plus 80. Then what we need to do here is we need to tell the player to move up, because that means the ball is actually going up. So that's what we're going to tell the we're also going to tell the player to move up. Makes sense, right? I think so. So because we're using current position here, and then we're adding the position, the Y position plus 80, that means the ball is going up, basically, because it's still less than that, so the ball is going up. So what we need to do here is also tell the AI or the bot player to move up. So we're gonna do that by doing player 2 and then move up. So this is just gonna be a label that we're gonna be executing. And now we're gonna check if the ball of Y is greater than or equal to position Y plus 220. So this means the ball is now going down. So what we're going to do here is going to say player 2 move down. So these are just labels that we're actually calling right now. And then once it's done with everything, we're going to go ahead and tell the player 2 to wait. So we're going to say player 2 wait. Those are actually labels that I'm going to be creating later on. So now that we have everything there, let's go ahead and create the labels. So the first one I'm going to be creating is this one, moving the player 2 up, source pedal 2, and then so moving the player up. So this is where we're going to be also checking if the pedal 2 is actually touching the top edge or the bottom edge of the screen. So we're going to do by doing pose Y is less than or equal to 0. If that's the case, then we're going to do player 2 top. And then we're going to check if the position of the Y, actually if that's not the case, then we're going to move the player to the top. So here we're going to do Y minus minus, I think it was 12, right? Then we're going to do 16 milliseconds and then linear, and we're good. There we go. And then once it's done moving, we're going to go ahead and tell it to go to player 2 wait. So that's just what they're going to be doing. So player 2 wait is also a label that I'm going to be creating, which is just going to be a wait command and then just jumping back to player 2, which is the main function where it does everything basically. So this is going to be player 2 move down. Okay, player 2 move down. So this one is going to be player 2 bottom. So in this case we need to say if it's greater than or equal to screen height minus height. So that means the player player 2 is touching the bottom of the screen basically. And then this one is going to be plus plus instead of minus minus because now we're moving down. And then yeah, I think I got everything right here. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is going to be the this one right here. You know, wait, where is it? Where the fuck did I put it? Oh yeah, right here. Player 2 top and player 2 bottom. So that's going to be the one that resets the position if the player is touching the top or the bottom. If the player 2 is touching the top or the bottom. So it's going to be position Y0. And I think we have to tell it to jump to player 2 wait. Of course, same thing with the other one. Just copy this, put it here, copy the name, change the name, copy this code. I hate rewriting everything, so that's why I want to do this, because it's way faster. And I also want to make this video shorter than 40 minutes. I'm almost going to 30, so that's great. Okay, one more label that we're missing is the player 2 wait. So this is going to be where it just waits and then jumps back to the main execution. So we're gonna go ahead and say jump player 2, and then we're done. Look at that, that's it. That's all for the player 2 movement. So this is gonna be automatically just moving up and down just by following the ball itself basically. Cool, right? Very good. Moving on to the next step. So this is the last step right here. It's gonna be the loop, the main game loop. So by default, I think I had like something here called main. So for the game to start, the user has to call the label by pressing a hotkey to start the game. So that's where this comes in, the main label. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Oh fuck, fuck's sake. So let's go back up here. I mean down here. So this is gonna be main game loop. Okay, so of course we're gonna tell this to skip this one. Then we're gonna go ahead and create the main loop here, the main game loop here, and see, how do we create this? So of course the first thing we need to do here is to tell this to start the player 2 movement, because once the game starts, the player 2 should also start as well. So I'm using the command run here to tell the program, to tell the engine that I want to create a different thread I want to create a different execution scope for player 2, which is just a label here that I created. So what it's going to be doing here is going to run this code here in a parallel, I think it's called parallel execution. That's what it does. So that way it doesn't block the main thread itself, which is this game loop here that I'm trying to create. All right, of course we're going to do another skip here. I'm going to create the reset label that we were using. I think it's somewhere over here. Right here, reset everything. So we need this in here, because this is where we're going to be resetting the position of the ball, the velocity as well when the player scores. Then we need everything to be resetted. So we're going to be resetting the velocity and also the Y velocity as well. What else do we need to reset? Oh yeah, we also need to reset the moving variable, so that way the player's not moving when the game is being resetted. And then we need to also reset the paddles as well. We need to put them in the center. I think we need the, is it? No, it's the Y. So we're going to be resetting the Y, which is going to be screen. Oh my god, I'm so slow sometimes. Screen height minus height divided by 2. Okay, there we go. And then now we need to reset the ball's position, so we need to pull the ball in the center. It's gonna be the Y, same thing, screen height. Oh yeah, we also need to reset the Y, so I do the same thing here, screen height minus height. Oh, that one is width, not height. For the X is width. I was like, why do I have two heights here? But this one should be width, because we're modifying the X and not the Y position. So X is width, Y is going to be using height. All right, good for that. Now, now that we're done with that, we also need to reset the score positions, so score values as well. Sometimes you never know what could happen. Maybe you just restarted the game, so you need to also the scores to also be resetted too, if that's the case. So that's what we're doing here. We're gonna go ahead and do player 1 score dash player 2 score. Okay, and then once we're done with that, we just finish. We're basically done with that one. All right, now we need one more label. So of course, before everything starts, we're going to initialize the reset first, because we need to make sure everything is centered and everything's ready to go. And now we're going to go ahead and create the label itself. So this is going to be the loop, which is going to be the ball move label. This is where this ball move is being executed by like the paddle here. So whenever the player scores a goal, it calls ball move. That's when the game has started, of course. And then same thing here, when the ball touches the top, it calls ball move, and it also calls ball move over here when it touches the bottom. So that's why we need this. This is like the main loop of the ball itself, like how the ball moves and all that. All right, so let's go ahead and implement that. So of course, for this to start, we need this. And just gonna put weights here just to make sure that we don't crash OBS. And move X. Now we're gonna be moving the variable, the ball, I mean. Same thing here for Y position. Oh my god, there we go. Y, it's gonna be plus plus val Y. And we're gonna be using, see, how fast should they move? Maybe just 16 milliseconds. I think that's too much. That's too fast. Let's go like 25. Actually 30 maybe. 30 is good. 30 milliseconds. We're gonna be using linear easing style for that one. And of course now we need to do the check statement for if the ball is touching the top of the top ceiling. So there's gonna be 0. Then we're gonna be, I forgot what I called them. What did I call it? I think it's just, what did I call those things? Oh yeah, right here, ball top and ball bottom. So that's what we're gonna be calling when that happens. Okay, same thing here. We're gonna say if the position is greater than or equal to the screen. So we're gonna be using screen, the height minus height, and that's gonna be ball bottom. Okay. And now we're gonna be checking if the player or if the player 1 or the player 2 has scored. So that's gonna be pose X. So this is gonna be checking if the player, I guess, let's say player 1 has scored. So the way we're gonna be doing that is we're gonna check if the value, if the current position X is greater than or equal to screen, the height. If that's the case, then that means player 1 score. So we're gonna call the player 1 score label. And then same thing with the other one, which is going to be player 2. So we're going to do pose X less than or equal to, let's do minus here. So we're going to do minus height, right? No, minus width. So width here is the width of the ball, I think. Yeah, that's what we're doing. So we're saying if the position X is less than or equal to the width, the minus width of the ball, then that means the ball is all the way on the left side. So that means the player 2 has scored the goal. So we're gonna call player 2 score, and we're done. Of course, now once everything's done, we're gonna go ahead and tell the the engine to jump back to the movement again, so that way it gets to re-execute that move label again. And yeah, that's it. And of course, to make sure everything, let's make sure everything works fine here. Right. Did I do everything right? I think, yeah, I think that looks good. Oh, of course. There we go. Okay. One more thing here. We're also gonna go ahead and call reset everything one more time on here. So when the script loads, it just calls the reset everything function to like reset everything. Okay, that's basically all. I think this should work. So I'm just gonna save the code, go to OBS here. Of course, I'm gonna have to load everything because I started from the start again. So where did I put it? I think I put it somewhere. Oh no! First we have to actually load the engine itself. I actually removed the engine, but now that we have the engine here, we're gonna go ahead and load the code that I just wrote, which is I think this one right here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna click execute. Nothing's gonna happen right now. That's because I actually have to go to the settings to set the hotkeys to actually start the game. So here we go. So this is where that happens. So we have press to start. I'm gonna use space, and then we have move pedal up. I'm gonna use the up key, and then the down key for the moving down. Apply, and now if I press space, look at that. Oh, okay. So something's wrong with the movement. When I press it, it just does this. Whoa, what the fuck? It said I scored somehow, but it just calls I scored when it doesn't. Okay, I think we broke something. Let me see if I can fix that. How do I? What's going on? That just makes no fucking sense. Where? Oh, this one should be greater than. Oh my goodness, bruh, come on. I'm like, what the fuck, nigga? Okay, but there's also another error here, which causes this thing to like reset somehow. It just resets out of nowhere. I think that's related to something, maybe the bounce left, bounce right. Oh. Uh, yes, this is what I did wrong, guys. Sorry about that. This shouldn't be height. It should be width because we're working with X and not the Y position. I always forget that. But all right, after now, everything should work better, I think. Let's go ahead and execute the code again. And then, of course, reset everything and play space. There we go. Okay. And look at that. We have ping pong running in OBS. Although it's a bit slower, we could fix this if you wanted to. You could fix it by changing the speed of how the ball moves. I made it move for 30 milliseconds every frame, basically. So it's moving 30 milliseconds every frame. But you could change that to make the ball go faster. Also, the ball goes fast when the score gets higher. So for example, I'm just gonna let the AI just score because this is just so slow right now. I don't want to touch it. Look at that. Okay, so we have two. So now you can see the ball. Actually, no, the speed actually resets when we score as well. So that also happens. But as the game goes on, it will actually also pick up speed as well. So you can see now it's moving a bit faster than it was when we started. But yeah, that's how you make ping pong game using OBS. Of course, using the 4S engine. Don't forget, this is running on 4S engine in OBS. And yeah, very cool. Thanks for watching the documentation. I will see you guys on the next one. Maybe on the next one, we're going to try to make a snake game with this engine, which is possible. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.